Welcome back to Absolutely Marvelland DC. I made Dan panic. My name is Benny. That is Dan, and that is Dylan. Today we're going to talk about The Flash is mostly good again. Mostly good again.
Oh,
Mostly.
you think so? Okay.
75% maybe.
We got
60,
Speedsters.
75.
We got Nora. We got Bart. We got Nora and Bart both being like, Mom and Dad are going to be upset with us. And then 30 minutes later being like, I'm almost 30.
Yeah, that
You
when
think that
she
was
was
a-
like, I'm 26. I was like,
Yeah.
sorry, how old are you? Because
sure?
you do not act 26.
No.
Mom and
think-
Dad are going to be so upset. So recap for you real quick. Picks up where we left off. Nora and Bart came back from the future. They're now fighting against Godspeed. Jay Garrick got involved. This episode is mostly about Bart, which is my only real bad part of this episode. Why are we introducing Bart in the last 2 episodes and then giving him an episode devoted to him? Like, I get you want the weight of like, oh, Godspeed is his Thawne. Okay.
It's not earned.
No. Not
It
at
kind
all.
of came out of nowhere, and then also when like he like slams his hands down, is like, no, he's my Thawne, kind of thing. Like, I understand what's going on. Part of me was like, I don't know if this is out of character for him or not, because of the fact that we haven't seen enough of his character to really differentiate what's normal and what is not. If I did not know the comics, I would be wondering the stability of Impulse.
On top of that, though, when he said Thawne, with how like baby crazy they've made Barry and Iris lately, and child crazy and future child and the mom and dad, I honest to God thought he said, "He's my son." Like, I don't know. I was like, no.
Oh, no.
Okay, that would have been one hell of a twist.
Totally.
But like, no, he didn't say son. He said like thought. I thought he just said it with like it was like, he's my thun. Like, I was like,
There's a
what?
lisp suddenly.
Yeah, but then he said Thawne again. I'm like, no, he said Thawne. He said Thawne.
He said Thawne.
I don't understand, like, why, like you said, like, they introduced Bart in the back, in like, literally the last 2 episodes of this season, when they had so much time to set this up. Like, maybe instead of having the Allegra B-plot and the Cecile stuff and the Sue stuff and the Frost stuff, maybe you just split the show between Flash dealing with the Force Wars and the Godspeeds, and us getting to know Nora and Bart in 2049. That's your show for the whole season.
Because they even did it, they could have easily had them in the future and just done it that way. And that's my biggest problem with this. I loved all the Speedster stuff. I loved the Jay Garrick stuff. I loved the Godspeed reveals and what's going on. I loved how they handled all of that. But Bart, as cool as it was to have Bart in the show finally, like you said, it wasn't earned. He just showed up, and now it's like, he's my Thawne. Don't you get it, Dad? Why don't you trust me? Like, what? Like, all of that was just kind of...
It's just not, like, because we don't have the chemistry between Jay Garrick and Bart is, like, I know that's a thing in the comics.
It's
but
actually not.
Yeah,
I thought
I
it
don't
was.
remember it being in the comics at all.
It's Max
Yeah.
Mercury in the comics.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's who I was thinking of.
But him and
Okay,
Jay
well,
have no
they're-
connection either.
They're playing on that then. Like,
Yeah,
that,
well, that's what I figured. But
Yeah.
and I'm happy they did that. They could stop introducing other. It would have been so much more just dumb if they were like, he killed Max Mercury. Who?
Right.
Well,
Who?
here you go. PowerPoint
Yeah.
Well,
presentation.
so
of Max.
let me tell you a little about Max.
That's the plot line that they're echoing from the comics. But like it's not earned. Like we haven't seen that relationship. We haven't seen Jay. He just shows up and
Yeah.
That was random. That was random.
Like-
oh, Flash needs me, Joan.
Because he hasn't been in this season at all, right?
No.
Like, this was the first
Not at
time
all.
he showed up this
We
season.
haven't seen him for a long time. Probably, I don't think we've seen him since Crisis.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just this show is just like, and there's so much of that in this episode, which is why, like, there is a lot. Like, yeah, we have flashes and stuff again, but also like every single fight just ends with somebody who isn't the Flash showing up to save everyone.
Yeah.
With like no setup. Like, why does every fight end that way?
I feel like this episode is just rewarding you if you've been watching the whole time, and is just terrible if you haven't. Like, so we could draw the connection of Nora and Barry. We can draw the connection of Jay and how he comes back from 2 seasons ago. We could draw the connection of Cecile connecting Barry to August Hart. All of that stuff. To me, honestly, it's Infinity War. So I have endlessly said Infinity War is a bad movie, but great for all of everything that came before. Huh?
Do you mean Endgame?
I've said it. I've said it up and down. I feel Infinity War is a bad standalone movie, but an incredible achievement and does amazing work on top of everything else. And you and I have had this debate, Dylan, and I agree.
No, not about that. I'm saying I don't care. That's old. We disagree.
Right.
Who cares?
No, but you're saying like nobody has to see the MCU, but that's the difference here. There's a good chance some people are jumping into this episode of The Flash because they heard Godspeed's here.
Right, but like, sure, but like and the point, like if you wanted to have, like, for example, the first time I realized that this was happening in this episode was when Frost showed up to stop the Godspeeds from killing Nora and Barry.
Yep.
There was no setup. We hadn't seen Frost at any point in that episode. How did she get there? Where was she before this? Like, the same thing with Cisco. Like, when Cisco shows up, he just shows up. How did he know? Like, they say that later. It's like, oh, Diggle told me that you guys were in trouble, blah, blah, blah. I came to help out.
But
Good old Diggle.
Did you not cheer when he kicked the door in? Because I cheered. And he was like, I leave Central City for a moment. And then I realized, I'm like, it's been 2 episodes. Like this, this return isn't even really that earned. But yeah, Cisco!
I looked at my screen and said, okay, he's here now. That was my reaction.
My thought was, wait, is it the technology or the powers? Did he get his powers back? Because I don't fully remember. I know he took the cure.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah.
He's Mecha Vibe. It's the same. He retrofitted the thing that he gave Diggle into his gauntlets, but like it's worse for some reason, he said. Like, I don't know, why would you make it worse? I don't understand
I don't want to have too much power. I don't want to be boom tubing everywhere this time.
Right. And it's like, I don't know. Like, that's the thing, too, is like the writers keep throwing stuff away that would make this stuff make sense. Like, they had vibe. Like, they had the reason why people could blip in the middle of a fight for just no reason. But now he's gone. So, and we didn't see, we didn't see when they suited up, and this is not the first time they've done this with Frost too, is where she just shows up and icicles someone at the end of a fight.
Which, for the record, the last time we saw her, she was hitting on the bartender after knocking him down in the alleyway, right? Like we've only seen her flirting with this bartender guy, and then out of nowhere, she's like, "Hey, I'm here to help again."
It's funny because I tweeted out that this episode is great, and someone's like, "Well, I dropped off at 8. What should I go watch?" And I said, "As soon as Godspeed shows up, skip everything else, and it'll be fine." Like, then we just get Flash stuff.
I feel like your love of Godspeed is just like carrying the show.
I actually don't like Godspeed. At all.
Okay.
I think
seems like you do.
You know what's fun? It's funny you say that because I'm wondering if that's why you like that he's here that much, because I love Godspeed from the comics, and I'm not the biggest fan of kind of what they're doing with him right now.
I'm in the same boat.
The bad problem with Godspeed is he's just Thawne. That's all he is. And in the comics, he is.
Oh, in the show. In
the show he is, but in the comics he is too. The difference is that he has more of a connection with Barry. But I feel like it would have been an even more Flash kind of a thing if Thawne had been undercover and become reverse. That's why I don't like him in the comics. And he was made to be put into a show so that there's residuals. That's hence why he's here. And I think even now it would have made far more sense with Thawne's back again. And the viewers would be like, "Oh, Thawne's back again." Well, yes, he's a paradox. He was for 20 years.
Am I the only one though? When he went inside August, I kind of thought that Thawne was going to be sitting in that chair. Kind of like this was my whole master plan. I took over. I am Godspeed. Maybe not the I am Godspeed because we are Flash. No, he actually just because we are Godspeed. No, I was kind of hoping he would show up because they are bringing in every single other speedster. I was kind of hoping Wally would also show up.
They wrote him. They gave him a line. He's
He's
somewhere.
meditating.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, he's like, I think that he said that he was. I don't understand why, because they said that he's meditating because he's defending the Speed Force from something, but like. He's not doing a great job. If that is what he's doing.
I think what I like about this episode versus the previous ones is, yes, you're right. There's a lot of very easy answers to problems. Things don't make a total amount of sense. But I think for me as a Flash fan, after all the bull crap we had to go through recently, I think I wanted that. I just wanted Flash and the family to be fighting a speedster, and I don't have to overthink it or be like, why are we doing this plot? Because the plot is we're here to fight that. And maybe because I'm a Flash fan, I just ignore things that don't make sense. But
yeah, probably.
I'm so exhausted by this show at this point. Like, in the penultimate episode, we essentially create a new villain. Like, August Hart in this show is a new villain.
No, he is. I said that last week, and I know someone's probably commenting down below, but he has had multiple actors and voice actors. Like, I Googled it. There's multiple people attributed to Godspeed.
Which, like, I called it, by the way, last episode when I said that, like, he's going to be just like a mustache twirly villain, because the second he said his name and he remembered who he was like, I'm August Hart. It's like, yeah, you're boring. Yeah, exactly.
That's
you're
what
evil.
I heard.
Wonderful. And that's exactly what it seems like we're getting. Like, you can't add depth to a character in one episode. It's not gonna work. Like, I don't care about Godspeed right now. And all of his clones, which don't make sense.
From a general standpoint, you're right. I don't care about what they've done with Godspeed and August Hart, and I feel like Bart is just wasted at this point. It would have made far more sense if Bart just showed up to show that the timeline is fine, and we didn't get all the backstory. But, like, when they were like, no, Godspeed's my Thawne, that's why they were chasing me. It would have made more sense if Nora said that. He's my villain in the future, because when she was first introduced, so was Godspeed. So wouldn't that have made more sense to put the two of them together?
Well, that's like the other thing, is there's so many things that the writers just throw here, and they like I'm sure there was like a boardroom meeting where they sat for hours and they're like, this is what's happening in our show. Now write it down. And they assume that we were in that boardroom meeting, so we know like where they're going. But
Right.
like the thing where they just there's like two throwaway lines where Nora's like, oh, you're talking about the other Nora. And it's like, what? What do you mean the other Nora? Like, yeah, it's, yes, like this Nora is different because the future has changed, but that's such a weird, like...
Oh, that's the Nora. My head was thinking the Speed Force being the mother Nora.
That's what I thought they were referencing.
I think they're saying that, like, this Nora is different from the Nora that Barry met in the previous season because the future's different. So this Nora isn't the same one that we saw in that season.
You know what would have been great? If they just didn't name them both Nora.
Yes!
Yeah.
And then have a season where both Noras show up.
Right.
Gosh,
and it's like, what is even happening anymore? And that's like that's my issue, is like there's a lot of stuff that's happening in this show that like they're forgetting about plot lines. Like why in the last episode did Dion show up to say that Iris has to stay here no matter what?
Yes,
but then
I
in
did
this
notice that.
episode he's like, oh no, I fixed it. She's fine. Like, what?
She was leaving the show, and now she's not.
It's like, what is going on?
Her contract was in negotiations, but it cleared up, so they brought her back in.
You're making me rethink it, Dylan. Damn it.
Yeah. No, I think this should have been a 3-part finale, because when he mentioned that he was his Thawne, I thought we were going to get a flashback. Well, technically a flash forward.
Yeah.
But to like hey, let's go see what he did to cause Impulse to be like this, to give it actual like oomph behind it. Like, there's so much that seems like it could have just used an extra 5 minutes. Like a simple 5 minutes to explain why they're here. What is the connection that's going on here? Give us some time to go, okay, this is Impulse. Let me take a breath. Okay, now I feel like I can experience what he's doing, not here's Impulse. Oh my gosh, he's having a breakdown over something that happened between two characters we haven't seen in 3 seasons.
Right.
Like
it's just like the writers just decided that they're going to throw every single plot at the wall, and they're not going to do any work to have any of them like finish correctly or like have any of them tie together. Like, that's my problem with this show. And I watched Superman and Lois directly after this, and I have in my notes here, I said, I don't remember what good is. Help. And then I watched Superman and Lois, and I was like, oh, okay, this show works because it's focused. Like,
It's funny because I did the
one
same
plot.
thing. I opened them both up this morning and I said, let me watch the one that's probably going to be bad first.
That's exactly what I did as well. I was like, you know what? I'm going to play the safety game. Yeah, and I know I've been enjoying Superman and Lois. I'm going to put that as my, okay, let's finish on a good note.
Exactly.
I always do that. I do like an escalation in quality. This morning I watched The Flash and I was like, okay. And then I watched Superman and Lois and then I watched Loki. But
I gotta watch
you guys haven't
Loki.
seen that yet. So, but yeah, like that's the problem with this show is that it's not focused. And I've said this like in probably every single like review episode we've done is that they need to trim everything down. They need to pick one lane and stick to it.
And season 4, I said what they should do is Barry and Wells get lost in the multiverse and we just have one-off episodes like Doctor Who.
That sounds great.
I would be amazing. I would be just do it in the same regard that they just did the Wally West story where he just appears because there's a malfunction in the Speed Force. Now he's going against a velocity raptor. They did the plot in the comics. Like I said that in season 4 after Savitar, we need just 3 people. We need to be Barry and his companions. That's what Yeah.
Also, like, I don't know if you guys noticed this. I'm sure this is nothing, but I feel like since we had our discussion about Grant Gustin leaving the show, I can, like, see it on his face now where he's just, like, completely checked out. I don't know if that's
I
probably
feel like he was, like, on the verge of crying for most of this episode. Like, no,
I don't want to be here anymore.
It's that syndrome where you've just put in your 2 weeks notice, and so you're like, okay, I just gotta get through these 2 weeks, and then
Dan
I'm
and I
clear.
right now because we have our vacation booked, and we were both saying yesterday like we're just tired and don't want to work right now. And he goes, why do you think that is, Benny? I'm like, we're not burned out. We don't work that much anymore. We fixed the schedule. I was like, you know what it is? We have a vacation in 2 weeks. We're already on vacation, Dan.
We're ready for it. Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, all right, well, that's Dylan ruining Flash for me.
I'm sorry.
I'm just glad Dylan mentioned the Nora thing because I legitimately thought she was talking about the Speed Force Nora.
I did too.
And I was like, this makes no sense. Obviously, it's not the same person.
No, I'm pretty sure she's talking, which, like, again, like, that's such, like a mind-bogglingly, like, oh, you're just gonna drop that? Like, I assumed it was the same Nora, and, like, she went back to the future, and then Bart was there. And, like, okay, the future's changed, I get that, and they spent that time together. But no, this is a completely different Nora that has spent 20 years with Bart.
That knows of the other Nora. Who,
right.
If we're keeping the original Nora, then she was wiped from existence.
Yes.
Well, because clearly Barry would have been like, hey, Nora, so let me tell you the story of when I met an alternate version of you that eventually I kind of got rid of by mistake. But you're here.
Which, like,
so,
I guess that makes sense.
Works out.
Right? So, like, does this one know about her already now? I hate time travel. Whatever.
The only reason why I assume that she does, and through that manner, is because of the Wally West story that I was just mentioning that's in comics, where he goes to the future, ends up in his son's body, and he's talking to his daughter, and she's like, oh yeah, you told us this story as like a bedtime story of the time you went to the future and you met us. Yeah, it was a really good issue. I recommend it to anyone. But that's the only reason why I was like, okay, it would kind of make sense that he would tell her. Now that you've mentioned it, obviously before I didn't even think that was the case, but it would make sense that he would be like, well, let me tell you my Flash stories of the time where I met an alternate version of you from the future because this happened.
Yeah.
But either way,
Last thing I'm going to say is the family monikers, once again, I found a little weird. When
they're still like, strange.
Uncle J, Uncle J, Uncle J, Uncle J, Uncle J, Uncle Wally, Uncle J, Uncle Wally. I'm like, at what point you just, I've got a lot of uncles, and eventually you're just like, hey, what up, Bob? Like.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like whenever they get in a show and they're always like, hey, bro. Hey, how's it going, sis? And it's like, no one talks like that.
And the worst part is they did that as well in this episode. Yes. Mom and Dad are going to be so upset. Like, whoa, really? It was like a Disney Channel like kids show moment. Like the two of them standing there like, oh no, we broke the Speed Force, Bart. Mom and Dad are going to be so upset.
I'm almost certain that whoever wrote the line from Nora where she's like, I'm almost 30, and then there's a beat and she's like, well, I'm like in 4 years. It's like that was the writers being like, how dare you criticize Nora? She acts this way because we want her to. We know how old she is.
They watched our episode and us bad-mouthing it.
Exactly.
All right, guys, thanks for watching this episode of Absolutely Marvel and DC, talking about The Flash. We'll be back with Superman and Lois and Legends of Tomorrow. And that's it. I think we got maybe a theory coming up, but that's it. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time right here.
See you later.